So when you're reading a history book and it's in the 1800s and you're reading about different political machines and campaigning and all that kind of thing, and you notice some very clear, somewhat identical similarities from then until now in our current political voting arena, what is wrong with this picture? Hi Booktube, it's Kim at middle of the book march, and I may be in a little bit of shadow. I'm filming this on a day where it's super cloudy. It's in the afternoon. It's the first chance I had, so I'm gonna roll with it, and here's the bad lighting. Welcome to my channel. I have a nonfiction book haul for you. This is a combination of wonderful, wonderful book mail and going out to buy books in person, taking a few book buying trips. But these are all nonfiction books that apply somehow to history, and I think the majority of them are American history. And it is it's been inspired, this haul has been inspired, and this haul is brought to you by the book These Truths by Jill Lepore. This whole haul is very much inspired by these truths because as I've been reading about American history and getting more familiar with my own country's history of its foundation, its forming, its foundation, its development, I've become far more interested in additional sources of history, American history, world history, all of it. So I've got a little stack here, medium-sized stack here, of books that apply to some sort of history in some way, and I'll stop talking and I'll show them to you. The first one I blame on Heidi from My Reading Life. She actually was the one who first showed these truths the first time I saw it on a Booktubers channel. And I was hooked. And once Karen Evans decided to do this read-along, I'm like, yeah, count me in because I've been looking at that book for a while now. Well, Heidi also displayed this book on her channel, How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immerwahr. She had nothing but glowing things to say about the book, and I found it for a steal. This is a history of the greater United States, and I'm not going to read too much. I'm just going to read a little bit. Let's see. We are familiar with... Hold on. Let me start over. We are familiar with maps that outline all 50 states, and we are also familiar with the idea that the United States is an empire, exercising power around the world. But what about the actual territories, the islands, atolls, and archipelagos this country has taken and governed? So, really interesting title, How to Hide an Empire. And, you know, do we in the United States, or what was formerly known as America, try to get by with kind of the attitude of, this is your reality, the emperor has no clothes. I say that a lot these days. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited about this book, and Heidi made it sound amazing, so I'm really looking forward to that. Another book that may be similar to that one, or may link into it somehow, is How the States Got Their Shapes by Mark Stein. And it's kind of interesting that it's in the format of a jigsaw puzzle. And I saw this one as well, and I'm like, that would be really interesting, because I kid you not, I've wondered that for years. Why are the shapes stated that way? Why? It's Wednesday, it's been a long week. Why are the shapes... I did it again. Why are the states shaped that way? Jeez, finally. So this was really interesting to me. And this one, it says quickly on the back, highly informative... I'm not even going to bother to edit this stuff out, people. This is me in all my glory. Let's see. In this highly informative and engaging book, Mark Stein shows that the perimeters of the 50 states, familiar icons on license plates, tourist brochures, and government letterheads, are not just meaningless shapes. Stein's carefully researched trove of regional histories embedded in our national map will delight history buffs, map enthusiasts, and anyone intrigued with political landscapes and American geography. That would be me. There's plenty of interest and intrigue in that book. This one is yet another Erik Larson. He's kind of one of the kings of nonfiction and research fiction, narrative nonfiction. Did I just say research fiction? Oh my gosh. Research, narrative, nonfiction. I'll friggin' get this video right if it kills me. This is Thunderstruck by Erik Larson. The subtitle says, well, it's not even a subtitle. I'm so surprised you guys come back. A ripping yarn of murder and invention. Murder. Thunderstruck. In Thunderstruck, Erik Larson tells the stories of two men, Holly Crippen, a very unlikely murderer, and, hold on, Guglielmo Marconi, the obsessive creator of a seemingly supernatural means of communication, whose lives intersect during one of the greatest criminal chases of all time. Dun dun dun. Set in Edwardian London and on the stormy coasts of Cornwall, Cape Cod, and Nova Scotia, Thunderstruck... Hold on. I'm starting to do this. My progressives are not working. Thunderstruck evokes the dynamism of those years with great shipping companies competed to build the biggest, fastest ocean liners. Scientific advances dazzled the public with visions of a world transformed, and the rich outdid one another with ostentatious displays of wealth. Against this background, Marconi races against incredible odds and relentless skepticism to perfect his invention, the wireless. Not internet wireless, you guys know what I mean. A prime catalyst for the emergence of the world we know today. Meanwhile, Crippen, the kindest of men, nearly commits the perfect murder. That looks good. This next one is called The Longest Line on the Map by Eric Rutkow. It is the United States and Pan American Highway and the quest to link the Americas. I really like this cover. I absolutely love maps, not just maps in fiction books in the inside covers, but world maps, United States maps. I love studying geography, and I'm actually pretty good at geography, but I love actual maps. And I tend to look them up online a lot, and I want to know where I am compared to other locations around the world or in my own country. So I really like Why am I rambling? I really like that cover. From the award-winning author of American Canopy, a dazzling account of the world's longest road, the Pan American Highway, and the epic quest to link North and South America. A dramatic story of commerce, technology, politics, and the divergent fates of the Americas in the 19th and 20th centuries. So all of these books, as you've seen so far, are not all inclusive to American history and or the 1800s. It's just books inspired me. These truths inspired me to look more into history books and books about the American experience, world experiences. There you go. That's kind of what I'm talking about. This one looked so good. This is called Inspector Oldfield and the Black Hand Society, America's Original Gangsters and the U.S. Postal Detective Who Brought Them to Justice by William Oldfield and Victoria Bruce. This looks so good. It's kind of like it says, you know, America's Original Gangsters and a postal guy, a postal detective who brought them to justice. Look what's on the back cover. Isn't that really interesting? This one says, very quickly, the incredible true story of the U.S. Post Office inspector who took down the deadly Black Hand, a turn-of-the-century Italian-American secret society that preyed on immigrants across America's industrial heartland. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. Before the emergence of Prohibition-area gangsters such as Al Capone and Lucky Luciano, there was the Black Hand. In those days, the FBI was in its infancy, and local law enforcement was clueless against the dangers. Most refused to believe that organized crime existed. The criminals ruled with terror, and victims rarely spoke out, until Inspector Frank Oldfield came along. He was a postal inspector. This is set, where is this set? In the early 1900s? Yeah, he became America's 156th post office inspector in 1899. So when I get to these truths into the 1900s, this may be one of the first books I reach for to add to my reading for that part in history. This next one has been around BookTube quite a bit already, and this is going to be appropriate for the time frame where World War II happens in the 1940s. This is They Called Us Enemy by George Takei, and it's a graphic novel. Well, it's a graphic memoir. Novel is not the correct term to use, but it's George Takei from Star Trek fame. Star Wars and Star Trek are really easy to mix up. Star Trek fame. He was Mr. Sulu. He was Japanese American. And this is his memoir. In 1942, at the order of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, every person of Japanese descent on the West Coast was rounded up and shipped to one of 10 relocation centers, hundreds of thousands of miles from home, where they would be held for years under armed guard. Years. And I read a novel, The Japanese Lover by Isabel Allende, a few months ago. And there was a part of the narrative was talking about the Japanese man in the story, about his background. And as a child, his family was interred in concentration camps, and they lived there. That was their residence for years. And that was fiction, but it really fascinated me on the actual history of Japanese people and Japanese Americans who were just herded into camps. And some of the novel's narrative was based on true events, and I had no idea that they were kept in camps for that long. And I knew very, very little about what Japanese Americans endured during this time. And some of them were American citizens. They were born here. They were living here. They didn't immigrate from Japan during the 40s. And so our government decided we're going to put them all into camps and round them up so we can watch them. And it's horrifying to think about, but this is going to be a good start for me to learn more about that period in history. So these next two books, these are the last two books I have to show you. I'm actually most excited about. This one, if you watch, I'm going to plug her again, but if you don't watch Alba at Seriella, you're crazy, and go get off my video and go watch her channel. But she was the one that first showed me this book online on BookTube, The Half Has Never Been Told, Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism by Edward E. Baptist. We are now entering the section of these truths during 1800-1865 Civil War. But one of the things that struck me the hardest during the Revolutionary War period that we just finished was the importance of slavery to the founding of the United States. And I just didn't realize how deep the country was into the slave trade and slave commerce. And without the, I'm not going to say contributions, but without the forced labor of African people, the country would not have grown like it did. And the literal building up of the America and the United States would not have happened without forced labor from African people. And this book, Alba read it, I think she finished it and said it was magnificent and extraordinary and important to read and all of it. So this one is exceptional, and I would love to dive into that soon, but it's not a short book. It's not going to be, a quick read, so I'm going to schedule that one. And this last one I'm probably as excited about. This is The History of White People by Nell Irvin Painter. Again, I'm like, I have to buy that. Let me read a little bit here. Ever since the Enlightenment, race theory and its inevitable partner, racism, have followed a crooked road, constructed by dominant peoples to justify the domination of others, filling a huge gap in the historical literature that has long focused on the non-white eminent historian. Nell Irvin Painter guides us through more than 2,000 years of Western civilization, tracing not only the invention of the idea of race, but also the frequent worship of various white races for economic, social, and political ends. The History of White People is a mind-expanding and myth-destroying exploration of notions of white race, not merely a skin color, but also a signal of power, prestige, and beauty to be withheld and granted selectively. Nell Irvin Painter is an author, a professor, a scholar. This is her, I don't know if you can see that. She's got several books out. She's the author of Standing at Armageddon and Sojourner Truth. Yeah, had to pick up this one. And I've said this before, but when I find an American history book written by a woman, an academic and a professor and a scholar, just like Jill Lepore's These Truths, I almost immediately pick it up because not only do I want to support women academic authors, but women authors in general, but I love the perspective of different genders, different races, different cultural backgrounds and life experiences, and that one looks incredible. So that's my mini nonfiction history haul in honor of Nonfiction November coming up in a few days. The election is also coming up next week. Yeah, it's an interesting time period in the U.S. For those of my subscribers or viewers that are around the world, thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient. It's truly a time of high anxiety. I know for me, for many of my friends, work colleagues, a bunch of us, it's just super high anxiety over here. A little overwhelming, a little depressing, anxiety-inducing, but gonna do my role, practice my right to vote, and I'm going to do that next week. Thanks for sticking with me. Let me know what you think of any of these books. Write a comment down below, and if you've read any of them, don't give me spoilers, but let me know if you like them. Which one looks super good to you? Which one looks I don't know, they all look so good. Some of the ones that apply to the time periods in these truths I will save to see if I can read them during that reading, but tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions on any of these. If you think some of them you're excited about the same ones that I'm super excited about, let me know down below. Thanks for sticking with me so far, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everybody.